how you build a high performance team.
Okay.
Because sometimes, you join a new company, you are handed over a team, or some reorg happen, and I'm just wondering, in given constraint, what all you can do to build a high performance team, or if you're starting from scratch, like you go to a startup and you have to hire everybody.
So I think basically this is a very high level question. I'm going to try my very best here from my experience of having built multiple teams. I like to build teams around people basically, and it's a little different I think than a lot of other maybe I don't know if it's different than other people would do it, but basically I like to build them around people. I know that if I have somebody that's an expert in something, their goal is to become a leader. I love planting trees, and I love this idea of like somebody is getting ready to grow into that next stage, and so I'm going to promote them to a TL. I'm going to hire, or even maybe shuffle one or two people from another team. But if we have to hire, if we have to build it from the ground up, I love that idea. And if I don't have somebody that I can grow to that level, then the next thing is to try to hire somebody so start with the people. I wouldn't start with the team first. I would start with who is going to run this thing, who's going to be my expert on the ground on this thing, who's going to get this done, and then I would build around that as much as possible basically, and it's worked wonderfully for me. I've been very lucky, but it's worked almost every single time I've done it that way. It's worked for me, and basically it's just this idea that I have somebody who's an expert at this thing. We're going to hire around them. We're going to build that up. Once in a while, we might have to unwind that. It might happen that the person doesn't like being a manager, but now you have the team, and even if the person hates the role they're in, and you might have to, potentially hire somebody from the outside or whatever it is, you have a high performance team because the individual is high performance. The people that we've hired are good people. We've done all of that right. And so basically, that's sort of my approach. Again, this is a super high level question, so it's not easy to dig into it. It totally depends on the situation. If I'm handed a team that's performing bad, I would take a very different approach than I'm building a brand new team in a startup, which I've had to do many times. I think that idea of like doing it around these like I've got this really strong tree that's planted now. I need to grow around it. I think
Right.
that's my favorite approach.
Okay. So more so, I was wondering about when we say we want to build a high performance team. I saw in Microsoft and all, they moved the performance reviews to every quarter, so they can find out, read the weak players as such quickly, or act on them, help them to perform as the expectation is there. So that was one of the things they were doing, to have a quarterly review. And in my last company, we went to monthly review. And initially when we thought about it, it completely freaked me out, because when we do a yearly review, that's the most stressful part for us as a manager.
Sure.
And you have to collect all the feedback for the whole year and all. And then I realized it is stressful because we are doing it once in a year.
Yep.
But if I do it monthly, everything is fresh. Just 2 sprints have gone, so we had 2-week sprint. So quickly chat with people, give them the feedback. Just 3 check box basically. You achieved, you are exceeded, or you need improvement. So that was one of the things I saw to create high performance.
I think the frequency of those things, obviously helps, but again, going back to the whole feedback thing, if we're doing like biweekly one-on-ones with all our people,
Right.
I think you should be giving them feedback every single one-on-one, like what went right, what didn't go right, and basically because the longer those things kind of go on, the harder they are to sort of nip in the butt. And so I think it's just basically, if you have these good practices up front, then
Right.
it's a lot less stressful. When I do an end of year review, I used to tell people going into the end of year review, like, if you don't know where you stand, and we're heading into like these calibrations and ratings, and if you don't know, then I have failed as a leader, because I should have been
True.
telling you the whole time how you were doing, and you should have asked me. You have a responsibility as well. You should have asked me, how am I doing? Am I doing a good job? Do I suck at this role? All of that is really, I think sort of critical. But I do agree, like forcing, there's a lot of leaders that are just getting started. They might be nervous about having these tough conversations. There's a lot of situations, right? And so
Right.
forcing that conversation to happen more frequently is a good thing. But I think it should even happen more frequently than a month. Like you should be doing it every single one-on-one. Like you should just touch on it. Like things are going great. I mean, just you don't have to harp on it forever. But even if you spend like a minute or two and just
Right.
a little bit of SBI about what went right, what didn't, really is going to go a long way.
True, true. And another component of high performance team is the motivation.
Yep, sure.
Motivation of individuals. So I'm just wondering if you do anything specifically to improve people motivation. One thing is to improve someone's motivation. Another thing is motivate to them to do something which they are not completely motivated. Because in the real world, it's not every day your work is very interesting. Sometimes you have to do grunt work also.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts around it, how to keep people motivated.
Yeah, I mean, so again with this one, there's a lot of things at play around a team's sort of pulse and how engaged they are and how happy they are and how motivated they are. Ideally, people are alternating between grunt work and really exciting work, and they're not stuck in this kind of like
Right.
in this position where they're constantly doing grunt work, because that's going to lead to people leaving eventually. Most people will
True.
leave eventually, and so I basically think about understanding your team well, understanding that are they unhappy with the type of tickets they're getting, the type of work that they're being funneled. And making sure that you're balancing that out. It's obviously not easy to do that, but a lot of going back to what you said earlier, even though the work might not feel like it's super exciting, all of the work is being done for a reason. Like there's some core reason
Right.
behind it, and there's some value that's going to be added to somebody, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be done. I mean, most
True.
the good thing about the corporate system is like it's a very efficient system, and it tries to optimize for revenues and all these other things, right? Good or bad, that's what it tries to do. And so
Right.
most of the stuff that you're building as an engineer is going to have an impact somewhere. I think as a leader, getting really good at communicating that back to them, like, hey, this might feel like a boring task, but there's $1 million of revenue behind it, or there's this behind it, and we as a team are grateful that you're taking this kind of work on, and you're going to get it to the finish line. Again, it has to be balanced with stuff that they want to do. Otherwise, you're going to get to a situation that we talked about where like someone is in an unhappy team and you've got to move them because all the work, they already know all of it and they hate it,
Right.
and that can happen. But I do think if you take the right approach and you alternate some of that around and you balance it out and you communicate the value and the core of why we're doing this, I think that goes a long way. But I think team morale in general, there's a lot to that, and it's not just the work. I mean, it's
Right.
there's a lot that goes to it. It's the organization, it's the management style, it's their colleagues, it's other teams and interactions with the business. All of that, the business
All of
in
that,
general,
true.
all of it goes into it. And so you got to like deal with all of those. You got to, as a leader, if you're a leader of a team, you have to touch on all of those things. You have to touch on why the company is doing certain things. You have to be able to explain. You got to become familiar with that, because I saw a lot of people in management roles that the company's taking a certain direction and they couldn't explain it well. So how do you expect people to be excited about this work that's coming down the pipeline when you can't even tell them why we're doing it? And so there's a lot to that. So it's really hard to harp on it in a 1 minute conversation. But I would say you
Sure.
have to study all of those angles and be able to communicate that clearly and eloquently and win over hearts and minds, if you will.
True. No, I agree with you.